To most people, love is a gradient, a slow build, a flexible arrangement open to interpretation and adjustment. But for the Sigma INFJ, love is binary. It's either sacred or irrelevant. There is no middle ground. No casual flirtation that drifts into meaning. No slow erosion into dependence. When they love, it is intentional, cellular, unedited. And when they don't, there's nothing to discuss. That's what people never quite grasp. Because from the outside, the Sigma INFJ looks quiet, calm, controlled. But on the inside, the moment they let you in, you become a part of their architecture. And that decision is never casual. Part 1. The high barrier entry. The Sigma INFJ doesn't fall in love. They permit it after a silent, brutal vetting process you'll never see. They don't seek connection just to fill space. They don't engage just because it's expected. Most people are background noise. Entertaining, maybe, but irrelevant. But if you're one of the very few who get through, it's not because you were charming or consistent. It's because you passed a series of subconscious filters. How you handle silence. How you react when they disappear. How honest your energy feels, not your words. Whether you can hold paradox, complexity, and restraint. They don't articulate it, but they know exactly what they're measuring. So if you ever found yourself inside their walls, know this: you weren't selected casually. You were chosen with precision. Part 2. Immersion, not infatuation. Sigma INFJs don't flirt. They study. They won't flood you with attention or put you through textbook stages of courtship. What they do instead is immerse. They learn you on multiple levels. Your triggers, your ambitions, your contradiction patterns, the things you don't say and the reasons why. Their love feels surgical, not dramatic, not explosive, but total. To others, this looks like obsession. To the Sigma INFJ, it's architecture. They're building a map of you, because if they're going to invest, it has to be complete. Partial intimacy feels dishonest to them. They don't want fragments. They want the full picture. That's why they move slowly. Not because they're unsure, but because they're already going all in. Part 3. Quiet devotion, loud silence. Here's the paradox that confuses most partners. Sigma INFJs love intensely, but they show it in quiet, often invisible ways. You might not hear "I miss you" every day, but they remember things you forgot you said. You might not get constant reassurances, but they'll protect your energy in rooms you're not in. You might think they're too composed, but they've already internalized your pain like it's their own. Their version of love isn't flamboyant. It's forensic. They watch, they absorb, they anchor. Not because they're emotionally needy, but because they don't take love lightly enough to dilute it with theatrics. And this restraint gets misinterpreted. Partners start to ask, "Do you even care? Why are you so distant? Why don't you say what you feel?" What they don't realize is, the Sigma INFJ has already felt it all. They're just not performing it for validation. Their love lives beneath the surface, deep, structured, unshakable. Until it's not. Part 4. The silent recalculation. The most haunting part. When something breaks the emotional architecture they've built, they won't warn you. There will be no emotional outburst. No, we need to talk. No dramatic declaration that something has shifted. They'll just stop mapping you. Quietly. Systematically. Without noise. They'll begin extracting the data. Reversing the emotional codes. Withdrawing the energy field they once built around your presence. And you won't notice it immediately. Because they're still kind. Still composed. But the devotion is gone. And that changes everything. Sigma INFJs do not rage. They recalibrate. They won't fight to be understood. They'll disappear from the level where they once loved you and leave you interacting with a version of them that no longer invests. That shift, it's irreversible. Part 5. Love as sovereignty, not surrender. For most people, love means merging. Blending needs. Syncing calendars. Emotional compromise. But the Sigma INFJ doesn't enter love to lose themselves. They enter it to expand themselves and the other person. Their love is full of mirrors. It reflects your deepest patterns. It confronts your unspoken fears. It pulls your potential forward, sometimes before you're ready to see it. This can feel like pressure. Like intensity. Like psychic exposure. But that's because their love isn't about comfort. It's about clarity. They'll love you enough to call out your avoidance. Enough to stand back when you self-destruct. Enough to stay steady when you test them emotionally. And not take the bait. Because to them, love isn't emotional surrender. It's mutual elevation. So if you try to control them, manipulate them, or reduce them to something more convenient, they won't protest. They'll leave. Not because they don't love you, but because they refuse to love anyone at the expense of themselves. Part 6. The aftermath is eternal. When a Sigma INFJ leaves, they don't always take their love with them. Sometimes it lingers, quietly, in the background of their life. Not because they want to return, but because they don't erase easily. Their mind holds archives. Their heart remembers patterns. Their empathy stores emotional blueprints like old maps in case they're ever needed again. But they won't reach out. They won't stalk your pages. They won't try to prove they've moved on. Because they have moved on. Even if they still remember your nervous habits. Even if they still remember the exact way you said goodbye. You may never know how deeply they once loved you. Because Sigma INFJs don't write love letters in public. They write them in their choices. Their silences. Their endurance. And even their absence. Conclusion, not a phase. A philosophy. So if you were loved by a Sigma INFJ, it wasn't casual. It wasn't replaceable. It wasn't because they were bored or lonely or seeking attention. It was because you passed through a filter that almost no one reaches. Because your presence fit a pattern they trust. Because your soul, at least for a time, felt like a place they could build in. And when that changed, or when you couldn't meet them in return, they left. Not to punish, not to dramatize, but because love, to them, is architecture. And they don't live in buildings that are crumbling. So when you remember them, don't ask if it meant anything. Ask why it still echoes. Even now.